Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I thought it would be a good time to give you my updated draft. I've already done one video, you can go back and watch that, which was my first official draft. Of course, I've done some tinkering since then and I thought I would update you with my latest structure, the latest players I'm looking at and which changes I've made since then. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump to today's video. So guys, before we jump into today's video, I just want to give a massive shout out to the sponsor of the video today, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN service that allows you to browse privately, hide your location, blocks malware and those annoying ads, and it allows you to stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Not only does it do all of these things, but the most useful feature for me is that you can trick your computer into thinking you're in a different country by changing your virtual location. This allows you to access content on websites from over 95 different countries. For example, say you want to watch my favorite film series of all time, the Dark Knight trilogy, but that isn't available in the UK. No issue at all. You can simply switch your virtual location to Hungary and bam, you can watch those films instantly. I did this very recently to watch No Way Home, the latest Spider-Man film, which is unfortunately not available in the UK. No issues, just change your virtual location. This also works for YouTube as well. I'm sure you've all seen those pesky not available in your country messages when you're trying to watch football highlights. Well, that isn't an issue when you have Surfshark. Not only are Surfshark sponsoring today's video, but they are also offering a ridiculously generous 83% off and an extra 3 months free as well. All you need to do is use the link in the description or the link in the pinned comment and use the promo code FPLRaptor when you check out. It's pretty much free. You get 83% off and an extra 3 months free as well. Very generous. If you just want to support my channel, you can do this, or if you want to stay safe, protect your anonymity, all of the various things you can get, or even just access all of that cool content outside of the country that you're living in, do give it a check. And a massive shout out to Surfshark for sponsoring the video. Let's take a look at my updated draft. So as I said at the start of the video, I have made a few changes since my first draft video released a couple of weeks ago now, so go back and watch that if you want to see how much my draft has changed. There are some key things that have stayed the same, and to be honest, they'll probably stay the same until game week 1 because I do like certain things about that first draft that I built. This current draft is still a 4-4-2. Which I'm almost certain I will probably be sticking with for game week 1. The reason for that is just due to flexibility. I like the price points that it covers, and I just think it allows you to have one cheap defender, one cheap midfielder, one cheap forward, and just cover, like I said, most of the key price points and positions on the pitch. Unfortunately, it is still 100 million. I did have a 99.5 million pound draft, which I did really like, but I just wanted to make one more upgrade, and that is always the issue we've got. I did discuss this in one of my recent videos about whether you need to leave 0.5 million in the bank. I don't think you need to ever leave 0.5 in the bank at the start, but it can be very helpful. So if you do build a draft that you like that's 99.5 and you don't think that extra 0.5 will give you a massive upgrade, maybe keep that in the bank. But this one is 100 mil 442. I guess the key change is I've got Ederson in goal. Now, in previous seasons, we'd almost mock like the casual players, the new players that went for a premium keeper. It was almost a way to identify who was a serious FPL manager, someone that's been playing for many years, and who is new to the game. Because the serious managers, the managers that have been playing for a very long time, know that often the best value goalkeepers are the 4.5 million pound ones, and it's often not worth paying like 6 million plus for some of those premium keepers. Of course, FPL have switched it up this year. We've got Ederson and Alisson at 5.5 now, along with Lloris as well. We've got Mendy down at 5, so it does make some of these more expensive keepers quite interesting. And I've got Ederson in there now because I just think it's such a good way into the Man City clean sheet. He's only 5.5 million. I know that is 1 million more than the likes of Raya and Sanchez, but I do genuinely believe he's probably going to be worth that over the first 6 to 8 game weeks. There are so many opportunities for clean sheets. Not necessarily game week 1, but after that, I do genuinely believe they could get 4 or 5 clean sheets in the first 8 weeks before we play a wild card. And then maybe after our wild card, I'll go back to a 4.5 million pound keeper, or maybe it'll be like a 4.8 million pound keeper at that point, the one that emerges as being very good value this season. So for now, I do really like having Ederson in goal. Let me know down below, who have you got in goal? Are you considering Ederson, Alisson, Lloris, Mendy, or are you sticking with the 4.5s? The reason I like having Ederson is because I've also got now Cancelo in here. And I just think that double City defence really makes a lot of sense. By some distance last season, they were the best defence in the league. I genuinely do believe they'll be the best defence in the league again this season. And like I said, the fixtures are so good. Cancelo is a very recent addition. As of about half an hour ago, to be honest, because I did have Diaz in there. I just really wanted Cancelo. It was one of Pep's recent press conferences where he was speaking about trying to whip a lot of balls into Haaland and really focusing on getting deliveries into the box. And I just think that really suits Cancelo. Now, of course, a lot of this does depend on if they sign Cucurella. Obviously, that introduces a little bit more competition. He's just been given the number 7 shirt. There are some suggestions that he might play slightly more forward. I just think 7 million is really good value for Cancelo. If you'd have told me 2 months ago that Cancelo was coming in at 7, I would have gone, yeah, Cancelo will definitely be in my draft. So I think maybe it's just me trying to save in the wrong places. And I do genuinely believe Cancelo is still excellent value. And like I said, what I like about the Ederson and Cancelo double up is you're getting 2 players from the best defense. And it also means you're not worrying about those Man City midfielders who can be real rotation risks, the likes of Foden and Mahrez we'll get onto. So let me know down below what you think of that. Have you got any Manchester City defenders? For the moment, I really like having Ederson and Cancelo in there. Reece James keeps his place in my team. I do believe he's the better of the Chelsea fullbacks to start the season, or Chelsea wingbacks, fullbacks, could be a back 4, could be a back 5. The reason I like James over Chilwell is there are still some doubts about Chilwell's fitness. There was recently, I can't remember the name of him, I do apologise for that. There was a journalist that said that Chilwell was sitting out of some of the training. That isn't to say that he's injured. It's not even to say that he's not necessarily fit. He's just clearly not 100% there yet. And I do worry that starting the season, he might be eased in a little bit more slowly. Pre-season will give us a little bit more of an inclination as to that. But I just think that Reece James, assuming he's starting at fullback/wingback and not centre-back, I do think he's a really excellent option, even from game week 1 with Everton away as the first fixture. And then the other player that maintains his place, of course, is Trent. There have been a lot of discussions on Twitter at the moment. Trent versus Robertson. Is it worth just going for Robbo? For me, no. I do genuinely believe Trent is worth the extra 0.5. That doesn't mean that Robertson's not an excellent option. If you don't want Diaz in your team, I would almost say that you should have Robertson in your team. What I would say is just be careful. There's a lot of people citing that Robertson has better expected goals than Trent, and that's why you should go for him. He does have better expected goals than Trent, at least last season. However, Trent's expected assists blow Robertson out the water. And for me, for defenders in particular, but just generally, we should be looking at expected goal involvement. Yes, defenders get extra points for goals in comparison to clean sheets, so you do want them to score. But I would fancy Trent to get slightly more attacking returns this season. But yeah, let me know down below what you think of Trent versus Robertson. For me, Trent is worth the extra 0.5. Then the final defender that makes his way into my team, you will see I'm wearing the new Manchester United kit. I am a Manchester United fan. I don't believe this is biased because I am still sceptical about our defence, but Diogo Dalot looks really good in pre-season. He looks like he's the favoured right back. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is just not a Manchester United right back. Now, of course, if we sign a right back in the next couple of weeks, which doesn't look likely, we haven't really been after any, then maybe Dalot becomes a terrible option. Maybe we can't put Dalot into our team. But assuming that we don't sign a right back, or if we do sign a right back, they're not necessarily an upgrade on Dalot, I genuinely think he could be a really nice option. In one of our recent pre-season games, he whipped in a beautiful left-footed cross. Yes, his delivery does sometimes struggle with his delivery. I still think he could be a really good option at 4.5 million. And you are getting away into, in my opinion, what will be a top 6 defence, maybe a top 8 defence. But Manchester United will improve defensively. Ten Hag is working on that in training. So I really like Diogo Dalot as an option. If I didn't go for Dalot at 4.5, my second favourite £4.5 million defender is actually Sven Botman of Newcastle. I think Newcastle looked really good defensively last season. We'll have to wait and see if that continues, but they've got good fixtures. They're pretty good for defensive data, and Botman's actually got really, really good attacking returns in the previous leagues that he's played in. So those are my two favourite 4.5s. I'm sort of switching between Dalot and Botman at the moment. Let me know down below who is your favourite 4.5. I'll be honest, in a lot of my drafts, I don't even have a £4.5 million defender. So that is the defence. Just to recap, I like Ederson and Cancelo because I get double City defence, which I think could be really, really good over the first 6 to 8 game weeks. Trent and James just have such great attacking numbers that I really want them, and it gives me a route into the Liverpool and Chelsea defence. And then I've just got a cheapie 4.5 Diogo Dalot in there. I don't mind Sven Botman if you want to go for that. I don't even mind Johnny, Tomiyasu, Ben White, etc. as well. But for me, I think Dalot could be a good balance of being in a decent defence, but also having a little bit of attacking potential. So whilst the defence has actually changed quite a bit since the first draft, the midfielders stayed largely the same, but I have had to make a downgrade, and I'm not so sure that I want to, which we'll discuss in 2 seconds. So starting with the two Liverpool boys, they've been in pretty much every one of my drafts. I do appreciate the logic for going without Salah. In fact, I think this is one of the only seasons in recent years where it actually does make sense to me, and I appreciate why people would want to go without him. He is the most expensive player in the game. He's the only one at 13 million. There are other really good captaincy options every week, and the rotation of Son and Haaland actually works very, very well for captaincy. Southampton at home, then you go to Bournemouth. It really does rotate quite nicely if you pick a Spurs asset and a City asset as well. So I appreciate all of that there. But for me, I still think Salah's the best captaincy option in game week 1. He tends to start the season very well. He's going to have had a full pre-season too. I just think for me, Salah is still the best captaincy option most weeks until I see some other evidence that suggests otherwise. I still think that Salah is going to be the best captaincy option, and as a result, I think he's worth the 13 million. I do appreciate that if you drop Salah, you can go Trent, Robertson, and Diaz, which is probably my favourite thing about dropping Salah. The issue you've then got is if you want to get Salah back in, you've got to drop Diaz and then find 5 million out of somewhere. So I think I would rather start with Salah, and if for some reason he doesn't look quite at it, it is an easy switch to the likes of De Bruyne and Son. Whereas if you start with De Bruyne or Son, or even Kane and Haaland, for example, that is your 2 premiums, to get to Salah is going to take at least 2 or 3 transfers there. So I think I would rather do it the way around where I start with him and then move off than start without and hope that he doesn't do anything. And Diaz versus Robertson, like I said, it isn't an easy decision to make. If it was just Diaz versus Robertson, I would argue that Robertson might be the better asset, especially when you're saving $1 million. But it's not just that, right? It's Diaz and Dalot in this case, or Diaz and a cheaper defender versus Robertson and a cheap midfielder. And I think I just don't like the cheap midfielders enough, as we're going to get onto in a second. I just think that a cheap defender such as Dalot plus Diaz is the slightly better combination. And for me, I do think Diaz will improve based on last season. People keep referring to last season. There's obviously no Mane. I think he'll play slightly more minutes here. And it's about his potential. It's about his ceiling. I think it is quite high. Not necessarily that we saw all of that last year, but sometimes you've got to take a bit of a gamble with it. And I do genuinely think that Diaz is the best £8 million midfielder for the upcoming season when you look at fixtures potential. And also his underlying data wasn't terrible last season too. The third player that hasn't changed is Pedro Neto. And I'll be honest, I'm not as keen on him as I was, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a bit of psychology. Is it the fact that his ownership's quite high, and I'm seeing him in every draft, and I'm starting to think, can I go elsewhere? Because the Neto of your team, that cheap sort of position, your midfielder, your attack, that's the position when you can take a massive risk. You can go for a player with low ownership that might be a slight rotation risk, where the data doesn't necessarily support it. I think that Neto spot could potentially be someone else by the time you see my next draft. I have flirted with the idea of Bailey in there. The only issue that I've got with that is that he's obviously not 100% nailed. His data wasn't great last season, and 5 million is a really dodgy price point because there aren't many other good £5 million midfielders. I know 5.5, there aren't that many either, but you can switch to a Gordon or a Jacob Ramsey. There are a few in there, Elise, Eze at 5.5 that I don't mind. So for the time being, he just about stays in there, Neto. Let me know down below, have you still got Neto in your draft? Have you gone off him? And if so, is it just because of his ownership? In which case, that's a silly thing to say. As I always tell you, pick the player you think will get the most points. And I've been very keen on Neto for about 6 weeks. Even before the prices came out, I was very keen on Neto. So maybe he should keep his place in my starting 11, but we'll have to wait and see there. The place where I've made a change here is Foden, who was previously in my draft at 8 million, has been downgraded to Rashford at 6.5. Now, if you remember, I've been talking about this for weeks now. The reason I had Foden in there, or another £8 million mid, is because we've got 7 £8 million midfielders this season. And I think they're all going to be excellent value at various points throughout the year. And I just like the idea of having 2 £8 million players at that price point, so that if Diaz is performing really well, but I also want Foden, Mahrez, Saka, Mount, one of those other £8 million mids, I've got another price point in my midfield where I can make that switch. And yes, if there are price rises or price falls, it might not necessarily be that easy, but it will be easier to go from a Foden to a Mount than it will be to go from a Rashford to a Mount. So that is one of the reasons why I liked having 2 £8 million mids. But I wanted to upgrade my defence slightly. As you can see here, I've managed to get Ederson in. I've managed to get Cancelo in there as well. And I've still got a really strong 4.5 in Dalot or in Sven Botman. So that's why I've made the downgrade. And the other reason is just Rashford is looking very, very good. And I know when the United get this, is going to sound like a lot of Man United propaganda. I've brought 2 Manchester United players into my team. We do look good in pre-season. Now, I will admit that we haven't necessarily played the hardest opposition. Even when we played against Liverpool, it was like their E or F team. It wasn't a particularly difficult match. We just look very hungry. Ten Hag's working on fitness. I don't think the fixtures are as bad as they looked at first glance. And I just think that Manchester United, along with someone like an Arsenal, these are the teams where a lot of people will focus a lot of their players on City, Liverpool, etc. And then they'll go for the likes of Neto. I think that Manchester United have the opportunity to have players where you could just get ahead of the pack slightly. And Dalot and Rashford, I think, are really, really good value there. You're getting them both for £11 million. Now, the issue we've got with Rashford is he's obviously has the high potential to be rotated with Alanga on the wing. And if Ronaldo doesn't leave, Martial will probably be back up for Ronaldo, or he could shift out to the wing as well. We've also got Eriksen and Bruno and Van der Beek. All three of those can't play in the number 10 role. So unless one switches into the pivot, one of those could play out wide as well. Essentially what I'm saying here is there is a lot of competition for those places, depending on if Ronaldo leaves and depending on where Van der Beek, Bruno and Eriksen play and what sort of formation we line up in to start game week 1. Putting that all together though, I do think that Rashford is first choice winger alongside Sancho with Martial/Ronaldo up top. So I do think Rashford will probably start game week 1 against Brighton at home. And I do think he's excellent value at 6.5 because he's quite a direct player and he scores quite a lot of goals. When he is in his fine form, which we've seen in the past, we didn't see it much last year, he's more of a goal scorer than an assister. So I do really like Rashford for those reasons. I'll be completely honest, if I could get Sancho in here, I do genuinely believe Sancho is the better option. I think Sancho will have a breakout year this season. He looks very, very good in pre-season. And I just think that due to the extra minutes that he's going to get, he will be more nailed than Rashford. Sancho's probably worth the extra million. I just can't find it. The only way that I could do it, which is how I had my draft about half an hour before I started filming this, is I had Diaz where Cancelo is, and I upgraded Rashford to Sancho. So let me know down below, do you prefer Cancelo and Rashford, option A, or Diaz and Sancho, option B? For now, I've gone with Rashford, hoping he's going to start, and that allows me to get Cancelo into the team. Let's take a look at the two strikers and the bench. So my two strikers do remain Haaland and Jesus, but before we kick off the video, I'm not as certain that I'm actually going to stick with these two for game week 1 as I was a couple of weeks ago, because I've been given some other options, some serious consideration. Let's start with Haaland. Of course, outside Haaland, the other clear option for a premium striker is Harry Kane. Harry Kane has been getting a little bit of attention, and people seem to be very opinionated one way or the other. I'll be honest, I'm neither. I'm probably about 60% on Haaland, 40% Kane. I understand sort of the logic between starting with the safer player in Kane. He's obviously on penalties. We expect Haaland to be on penalties, but we know he's on pens. We know he'll start every game, or expect him to start every game. And the fixtures aren't bad for Spurs at all. The thing that's putting me off Kane, and the thing that's making me want to start with Haaland anyway, is I want to captain Salah in game week 1. Even if I had Kane or Son, I would still captain Salah. I do genuinely believe he's the best captaincy option in game week 1. I know that is open to debate. That's just my personal opinion there. So I don't need the Spurs player for Saints at home in game week 1. I don't mind captain Salah in game week 2, but I'm looking at game week 2. Spurs have Chelsea and Man City have Bournemouth. To me, that stands out as a fixture where I would like to captain Haaland. So yes, you could start with Kane and then switch to Haaland, but if I'm not going to captain Kane in game week 1 anyway, why don't I just start the season with Haaland and hope that he hits the ground running, maybe grabs a goal or two against West Ham, matches Kane at the very least, and then you've got him for the really nice fixtures from game week 2 to about game week 8 for Man City. So I don't think I want to book a transfer in, and due to captaincy reasons alone, I think I like Haaland to partner with Salah. So that's the reason why I'm currently leaning towards Haaland. But like I said, it's probably about 60-40. So I'm definitely still considering Kane. Let me know down below who you're currently on out of those two, or are you maybe having no premium strikers at all? For now, let's stick with the Norwegian. And then my second striker is still Gabi Jesus, but there are two other strikers who I am heavily considering. Those are Havertz. And I know Havertz hasn't been that popular. I just think if he can nail down a place as the starting striker for Chelsea, which he should do based on the signings that Chelsea have made, he hasn't got that much competition up top for Chelsea. So I think he could be a really nice option. Put up really good underlying data last season and at points showed what he could do. And then the other one, it would be instead of Rashford, don't worry, is Anthony Martial. Now, I wouldn't ever go into game week 1, or I don't think so anyway, with triple Manchester United. I'm even hesitant going with double Manchester United. But if I went for someone else instead of Rashford and was able to get Martial in there, either as a front three or instead of Gabriel Jesus, I really don't mind that. And I'll be completely honest at this stage, if Manchester United sell Ronaldo, I will probably go into game week 1 with Martial. I think at 7 million, we've seen him in the past. When he is in form and when he is confident, his underlying data is really good. He's an absolute goal-scoring machine. He just hasn't been able to keep that up for long periods, but he looks hungry, looks happy at the moment. These are more eye test things just through the preseason games that I've been watching. I would quite like to get Martial in, but only if Ronaldo leaves. And at the moment, it doesn't look very likely that he will. So for the time being, sticking with Rashford as my Manchester United attacker, and therefore it means sticking with Gabriel Jesus. The other option, which I don't mind, but I've gone off slightly, is Callum Wilson. I don't mind him as an option. They've just got a tricky fixture in game week 3 and game week 5 Newcastle. And I just think the potential is there to go for the likes of a Martial or a Jesus, who might have a slightly higher ceiling, potentially anyway. So that's the starting 11. For the bench, it's largely the same. I think most people, as their first sub and their second sub, will have Neco Williams. Looks like a great option for £4 million at Nottingham Forest. And then Andreas Pereira at 4.5 for Fulham. I don't mind De Silva from Brentford. I know a lot of people have been bigging him up. A lot of the Brentford fans are saying that he might play in that Ericsson role. So we could see a £4.5 million De Silva playing as a central attacking midfielder for Brentford. He could be an alternative or an addition to Andreas Pereira if you only want to play a three-man midfield. And then I've just switched out my £4.5 million forward. I've gone for Cameron Archer, who looks like he's in pretty good form in pre-season for Villa. And again, a couple of Villa fans have said, whilst he is probably behind in the pecking order, behind a few of the Aston Villa strikers, he could still get a little bit of game time this season. So that is the updated draft. Let me know down below what you think of it. Also, let me know down below what your draft is currently looking like. You can either just do your whole team, or you can just give me your dilemmas. I'd be really interested to see what you guys are doing in the comments. I've been away in Italy for the last sort of 8 or 9 days. So I'm a little bit out of the loop with FPL. So if I've messed anything up in this video, or if I've missed anything out, or if you think there's a new emerging template or any players I haven't considered, do let me know down below in the comments. And always interested to hear your thoughts, of course. So guys, there you have it. That is my updated draft. Roast me in the comments. Let me know what you like about it. Let me know what you don't like. Always interested to hear your thoughts. And also, like I said, if you'd like to support the channel, please do check out Surfshark. Click the link in the description or the link in the pinned comment. Use the code FPLRaptor for 83% off and a further 3 months free as well. Until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.